How about that E3, huh? It was so decent that I actually found it difficult to be a cynical, moany, miserable bastard on Twitter. I still managed it, but it was a challenge. I mean, look at what we had. We had the Final Fantasy VIIs. That was really interesting to see. We had Microsoft not fucking it up, which was interesting. The Xbox backwards compatibility should have been there from the start, but it was nice to see. That was all interesting and fun. We had all sorts of representation, diversity of characters, and all that sort of stuff, which is always nice to see. Metroid Prime Federation Force was finally revealed. Nintendo fans around the world were excited for this long-awaited sequel. We are thrilled about that one. And, of course, Shenmue 3 happened. And this is the one we're going to talk about today because I think that's the one that has the most interesting debate around it. Was it right for it to be a Kickstarter? Was Sony's involvement a good or bad thing? We're going to talk about that on this week's episode. So, what are you doing? What are you watching me for? What are you watching me for? Let's watch that now. I shouldn't have blamed you for that. It's the editing that's got to bring it on. So I'll stop talking and then you can watch that, because me just staying here is a delay of that. I mean, you could just skip ahead. Shenmue 3! Oh my god! Sony played us like violins at its E3 2015 press conference, and hats off to them. The Last Guardian, Horizon Zero Dawn, Final Fantasy VII, and the aforementioned Shenmue 3 tore the roof off the place, and I don't think being excited is unreasonable in the least. With the dust settling, however, the cynicism is creeping in, and there's definitely controversy surrounding the revival of the classic Dreamcast series. When announced, Sony claimed it had given Shenmue 3 the opportunity to promote its Kickstarter project because it believed in the title so much. Now, there's something odd about a major billion-dollar corporation saying it believes in a project out of one side of its mouth and asking us to fund it ourselves with the other side, but hey, we were caught up in the moment and gamers excitedly rushed to Kickstarter in such a rabid herd that the site actually crashed. It was hilarious and a great moment. But the questions asked in the fallout were pretty important. Why was Shenmue asking for $2 million when the original cost like almost $50 million? Why isn't Sega footing the bill, or Sony if it loves it so much? We more or less got that answer, and it wasn't an unexpected one. Other parties do have financial stakes in the project, and Sony itself is helping the project out with marketing and some other backing, which was contingent upon the Kickstarter's now totally unquestionable success. And this isn't the first time Kickstarter projects have had a leg up either. Most notably, Bloodstained Ritual of the Night used its Kickstarter as a proof of interest to convince funding from further investors. However, the direct involvement from Sony is what's really set Shenmue apart. First of all, let's look at the positives, because there are indeed positives. The most important benefit of Shenmue 3 is that it's very, very good for Kickstarter. Like Bloodstained and Yooka-Laylee before it, the presence of a large significant project on a crowdfunding platform is great for that platform's ecosystem overall. Now, it's been argued by some pundits that big indie projects kill real indie projects by hogging the spotlight, but that's actually a ludicrous assertion that treats crowdfunding like a zero-sum game. First of all, a Kickstarter spokesperson directly confirmed to me that big Kickstarter projects actively generate money and attention for smaller ones, and that makes sense, really. If you're driving a lot of new people to Kickstarter, making them less shy about funding things, getting them to make accounts, investing them in the idea of crowdfunding, then it's hardly surprising that they're more willing to go on and fund other things. I have directly observed this with the Jimquisition's own Patreon too. Now, I was called morally reprehensible by some people for using Patreon because I wasn't an obscure indie game dev nobody had heard of, as if they're the only people allowed to use it and my presence there was actively stealing money from pockets. What these crowdfunding gatekeepers don't realise, however, is that some people who signed up to Patreon specifically to contribute to the Jimquisition then went on to contribute to other Patreon pages. It's a knock-on effect. Big crowdfund projects become gateways to the smaller ones. In this regard, Shenmue 3 is undoubtedly a fucking wonderful thing for crowdfunding in general, an idea that I truly believe in and want to see succeed. Kickstarter itself got massive exposure thanks to Sony's conference, and that's a great thing. Moreover, the idea of using Kickstarter as a gauge of interest and a guarantee of significant financial support isn't a terrible idea. With some notorious cases of Kickstarters overshooting and mismanaging budgets, hello Double Fine, it's quite sensible that many projects are now openly using Kickstarter as part of their budget rather than the sum total. I have no issue with that and actually take it as a sign that the developer knows what it's doing. That is, provided full disclosure is offered and we know exactly what we're getting into. Which is one of the iffier parts about this Shenmue 3 deal. Yes, we now know that Sony's involvement is a little more than simply helping old Yu Suzuki get stage time, but that's not the impression they gave us that excitable Monday night, was it? They got the viewers whipped into a frenzy and got millions of dollars pledged before we knew what the fuck was going on, and the sheer chaos of mixed messages in the aftermath only made things worse. Was Sony funding the whole thing? How important was the Kickstarter money? Were we just being asked to pay up now to show our consumer interest, or what the fuck? The dust is still settling and clarifications are still going out. The lack of upfront disclosure has created a shitstorm this past week. And the fact this is the second version of this video going up today is only proof of that. It's a confusing time. Even more galling, Suzuki has now come out to say that despite asking for $2 million, what he actually needs, at least to do more than just a story and fully realise his dream of an open world game, is $10 million. And now there's pressure for those who are already backing it to up their pledges, and worries we'll now get Shenmue Light if we don't get the full whack. None of which was communicated at the time, and it looks pretty effing dodgy now. It may be considered good business to set your Kickstarter goals lower and hope for more, but Jesus Christ, this kind of leverage is getting pretty common on Kickstarter, and I don't think it does much to encourage trust. What really concerns me, however, is the potential precedent this sets. Now that Sony has its foot in the door, will it burst open for the locusts of the so-called AAA world to seize the house for itself? Now, like I already said, big projects do not actively take away from small ones in general, but the worry of market saturation and bursting bubbles are things we need to take as serious potential problems. I think right now, despite what detractors say, crowdfunding is in a healthy place, but the fact remains that I don't trust any major game publishers to keep things healthy when they get involved, because they're parasitic by nature and toxic by design. I never underestimate their propensity to take the piss, because, well, it's what they prove themselves best at doing time and time again. I shudder to think of a world in which Electronic Arts gets its hands on crowdfunding, believing it's now okay because someone else took the first step. I look at what companies have done to good ideas in the past and I weep, lordy do I weep. Downloadable content, free-to-play economies, mobile games. Now, they were all good ideas when done right, but have all become filthy terms to a lot of us thanks to abuse and exploitation. Corporations hate change, and so when they glom onto a new idea, they twist and break it to make it fit their old way of doing things. Crowdfunding is a disruptive and fresh idea. It's ripe for breakage. I can just imagine a company like Ubisoft announcing Beyond Good and Evil 2 is in development at last, before dropping the hammer and saying they need us to prove ourselves to them by stomping up the cash on Kickstarter. The sad thing is, it'd probably work too, and then publishers realise they can be manipulative and rake in extra cash from us while continuing to enjoy the money they already make off DLC, pre-order deals, sponsorships, re-releases and limited editions. But then again, what if Kickstarter was used by companies as a replacement for all that ancillary bullshit? What if publishers raised extra funds on Kickstarter and it allowed them to not carve up content for DLC and play the pathetic pre-order game? I'd be interested in seeing that, though of course I doubt it'd ever happen. Instead, we're seeing things like this, where Kickstarter is basically being used as a pre-order platform, and Lord knows pre-order culture has already damaged the game industry in enough ways without it seeping into crowdfunding too. It really doesn't help the misconceptions people have about Kickstarter either, where some folk really do think they're guaranteed a product because they bought it on there. Overall, I don't think Shenmue 3 is cause to ring alarm bells yet, but we ought to be very cautious about it and what it could lead to. I think it's great that it happened. I'm thrilled for Shenmue fans who finally see a new game on the horizon, and I'm delighted to see crowdfunding get such a major spotlight. But ultimately, I want to see crowdfunding break away from traditional publishers, not have them march in with chains and hooks to keep control of the games. And I want disclosure up front, not emotional manipulation first and the truth much, much later. I don't think any of that's unreasonable to ask for, and I certainly hope we get it. And this is totally unrelated, but Horizon Zero Dawn? Fuck yes! Incidentally, that game I was showing a lot of in the footage there was a game called We Happy Few. It's currently doing a Kickstarter. I've backed it myself, disclosure, because it's one I believe in quite a bit. The Kickstarter is still running. It is a game in which how's the best way to describe it? BioShock meets The Binding of Isaac while watching the Stepford Wives. It's a very exciting project, and having played the pre-alpha version of it, that's what that footage was, I am very, very hopeful that that's going to be something special. So that's my good deed done for today. Talk about that for a little minute. And I think that's it. I was looking at this table that's next to here that you never see for fun things I could just wave about in front of the camera, but there's nothing there, so I'm just going to fuck off now. Thank God for me and all that shit. By the way, mid-July, the Screw Attack Gaming Convention is happening in Frisco, Texas, and I'm going to be there, and there's going to be the world's first Jimquisition live. I can't remember the dates. I meant to look it up before I started filming, and can't be fucked to walk about 5 feet over there to the computer to double check. But it is mid-July, and I don't know what part of the weekend my bit is. They've not told me yet, but I'll have more details to follow, so you can look for those in the future. But if you are interested in watching me on stage for an hour just talking bollocks, then you can do that. You can do that. That's been allowed unto you. Byeth me. It's probably going to be decent.